As above, so below. This is one of the most ancient and powerful phrases in Hermeticism. The esoteric philosophy believed to originate from Hermes Trismegistus, the legendary figure who unified the wisdom of Thoth, Egyptian, and Hermes, Greek, into a cosmic code. For many, it's nothing more than a symbolic proverb. But for those patient enough to look deeper, it is a key to unlocking the truth about life, the mind, and the universe we live in. Today, we're diving into as above, so below, not to admire its mystery, but to use it. This ancient principle is the missing link between your inner world and the results you get in life. It explains why your repeated emotions shape your relationships, why your beliefs, conscious or not, block opportunities or attract them, why no matter how hard you try to change things outside, nothing really shifts until you change what's happening inside. This isn't spiritual poetry. It's a practical framework for changing your life from the inside out. When you understand how it works, you can use it to break the internal patterns that keep you stuck, no matter how hard you try. Shift the way people treat you without saying a word. Create real change in your relationships, career, health, and sense of purpose without needing the outside world to change first. If you found this content valuable, don't hesitate to give me a like and hit that subscribe button. I'm aiming to reach my first 1,000 subscribers. A small milestone, but a meaningful one. Your support is the fuel that keeps me creating high-quality videos, made to serve you better with every step of this journey. As above, so below. This phrase might sound poetic or even mystical, but its origin goes back thousands of years, to a short but powerful ancient text called the Emerald Tablet. The tablet is said to record the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus. He represents wisdom, writing, and communication, and more importantly, the bridge between the physical and spiritual worlds. Hermeticism, the philosophy based on Hermes' teachings, isn't just spiritual poetry. In the ancient world, it was a serious and structured system that blended philosophy, spirituality, and early science. Hermetic thought is built around key principles like correspondence, as above, so below, vibration, everything moves and has energy, duality, the idea that everything has opposites, and mentalism, the idea that reality begins in the mind. These ideas helped people understand how the universe works, both the outer world and the inner self. What's surprising to many is that Hermetic philosophy wasn't seen as irrational or unscientific in its time. In fact, during the Middle Ages and the Renaissance, it inspired some of history's most respected thinkers. Isaac Newton, for example, studied Hermetic texts extensively. While he's now remembered as the father of classical physics, he actually wrote more about alchemy and ancient philosophy than about gravity or motion. Paracelsus, a key figure in early medicine, and Leonardo da Vinci also explored Hermetic ideas in their work. To them, understanding the human body or the cosmos wasn't just scientific. It was deeply connected to understanding the divine order of things. What made Hermeticism so powerful was its central idea that the universe reflects itself at every level. The patterns in the stars are mirrored in the structure of the human body. The laws of nature reflect the workings of the mind. This as above, so below way of thinking encouraged people to look for hidden patterns, to ask questions, and to believe that understanding the world meant understanding themselves too. Even today, some of these old ideas feel surprisingly modern. Take the principle of vibration. Thousands of years ago, Hermetic thinkers believed everything is in motion, nothing stays still. Now we know through quantum physics that at the smallest level, everything is made of energy and vibration. That's not to say Hermeticism was a science textbook, but it was ahead of its time in encouraging people to think deeply about the connections between things. Hermeticism might seem like a lost philosophy, but its influence is still around in science, psychology, and even modern spirituality. It's a reminder that long before our current technologies, people were already asking big questions and searching for meaning in the patterns of life. Maybe that's why this ancient phrase still resonates today. It invites us to look closer at the sky, the world, and ourselves, and consider that everything might be more connected than it seems. Now let's get into what "as above, so below" actually means, not as a cryptic slogan, but as the heart of an ancient worldview. In Hermetic thought, this phrase isn't poetic fluff. It's a statement about how reality works. The idea is that everything is connected through patterns that repeat from the smallest scale to the largest, from the physical world to our thoughts and emotions. Look at a cell under a microscope, or a spiral galaxy through a telescope. The forms echo each other. These reflections aren't just coincidence. They suggest a universe built on shared blueprints. What makes this especially compelling today is that modern science keeps bumping into these patterns. Neuroscientist Franco Vazza and neurosurgeon Alberto Filetti compared the structure of the human brain with the cosmic web of galaxies. The similarities are striking, not just visually but in how the systems function. Both distribute energy and information through vast, branching networks. It's the kind of parallel that Hermetic thinkers would say proves their point. The micro mirrors the macro, and suddenly, as above, so below isn't just mystical. It starts to look like systems theory. Fractals in nature are another real-world clue. Ever noticed how tree branches resemble the structure of your lungs? Or how a river's tributaries look like the veins in a leaf? These are fractals, patterns that repeat at different scales. Whether you zoom in or zoom out, the structure stays similar. It's how nature builds efficiency into everything from blood circulation to snowflakes. That's Hermeticism in action. Each small part carries the shape of the whole. But the principle doesn't stop at physical structure. As within, so without is its psychological counterpart. This is where things get personal. The mind isn't just a passive observer of reality. According to Hermetic thought, and increasingly modern neuroscience, plays an active role in shaping experience. Carl Jung warned that if you don't become aware of your unconscious mind, it will run your life and you'll call it fate. That's not a metaphor. Studies in neuroplasticity show that your beliefs and mental habits can literally reshape your brain, impacting how you behave, learn, and recover from injury. Think about the placebo effect. Harvard researchers have shown that a sugar pill, when paired with belief, can change someone's biochemistry. The opposite is true too. Negative expectations can make symptoms worse. So yes, your mindset isn't just in your head. It creates measurable effects in the body. That's as within, so without, with medical backing. Some people argue that belief alone can't change reality. But what if reality isn't as objective as we've always thought? In the 1920s, researchers discovered the Hawthorne effect. People changed their behavior simply because they knew they were being watched. Observation itself influenced outcomes. Quantum physics takes this even further. In the observer effect, the behavior of subatomic particles shifts when someone measures them. Somehow, consciousness plays a role in shaping what's real. Then there's quantum entanglement. Two particles, separated by vast distances, still affect each other instantly. That breaks our usual sense of space and time. It suggests that everything is part of a shared informational field, something Hermeticists might call the universal mind. The idea that we're all connected, not just metaphorically but physically and energetically, starts to gain scientific support. The holographic universe theory adds yet another layer. It proposes that every part of the universe contains the whole, just like a hologram. If that's true, then you, me, the stars, the atoms in your coffee mug, they're all carrying the same information. Again, Hermeticism was saying this thousands of years ago, not in lab reports, but in language that pointed to the same truth. Nothing is isolated. Everything reflects everything else. So when you hear "as above, so below," it's not just about stars and planets or inner peace. It's a reminder that the universe may be much more unified than it appears, and that the inner life, your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, may be more powerful than you've been taught to believe. Whether we're talking about neurons or nebulae, what we're starting to see is that the line between out there and in here is blurrier than we thought. Once you see this pattern, you start to notice it everywhere. The way you think shapes how you feel. How you feel influences what you do. What you do ripples into the world. It's not magic. It's the design. Whether Hermeticism gave us a spiritual philosophy or an early draft of unified science, it offers something deeply useful. A way to see ourselves not as separate from the universe, but as participants in it. Active contributors to the larger pattern that's playing out right now through all of us. Following our exploration of how the universe mirrors itself across every layer of existence, from galaxies to neurons, from thoughts to atoms, it's only natural to ask, what does that mean for my life? If as above, so below is more than a poetic idea, if the cosmos is one vast interconnected field of reflections, then your personal reality, your relationships, your opportunities, even your limits, isn't random. It's shaped, at least in part, by what's happening inside you. This doesn't mean you're to blame for everything that goes wrong. That's a harmful oversimplification. What it means is something more empowering. You have agency. You can shift how life responds to you by shifting how you operate internally. Your mindset, your emotional state, your beliefs, they're not just private matters. They're frequencies you're broadcasting, and the world, in a way, is listening and responding. Let's bring this down to earth. Imagine two people of equal talent. One walks into a room believing they're not good enough. Without realizing it, they avoid eye contact, pass on speaking opportunities, and interpret neutral feedback as criticism. Their reality will reflect those beliefs, not because life is punishing them, but because they're unconsciously shaping their own experiences. The second person walks in with a grounded sense of worth. They speak up, connect more easily, and bounce back from awkward moments. They're living in a different version of the same world, not because the world changed, but because they did. That's the core idea behind applying as above, so below to personal life. When you shift your inner frequency, the outer reality shifts in response. This isn't magic. It's psychology, behavior science, and energy all rolled into one. So how do we begin that shift? Start by looking inward with curiosity, not judgment. Meditation is one of the most powerful tools for this. It helps quiet the surface noise, so you can tune into what's really going on beneath. Even 5 minutes a day can create a pause, a space between stimulus and reaction. In that pause, new choices become possible. You stop reacting on autopilot and start responding with intention. Pair that with reflective journaling, and you've got a direct line to the subconscious. When you write without censoring yourself, patterns start to emerge. Old stories, limiting beliefs, habitual fears. Things you thought were random begin to reveal structure. You notice that maybe your constant worry about money isn't just about your bank account. It's tied to a childhood message that said security equals love. Once you see the pattern, you can start rewriting it. And don't underestimate the quiet power of gratitude. It's not about pretending everything's perfect. It's about training your brain to recognize what is working. When you begin the day noting just 3 things you're thankful for, your morning coffee, a warm bed, the fact your child laughed at breakfast, you're shifting focus from lack to abundance. You start seeing possibilities instead of problems. Gratitude isn't rewarded by the universe like a prize. It just changes how you show up, and that changes what life reflects back. Even your environment plays a role in this dynamic. A cluttered space often reflects a cluttered mind. Cleaning your home, clearing out drawers, rearranging furniture, these acts aren't just aesthetic. They signal a reset. They create movement where there was stagnation. You feel lighter, more focused, more in control. That's not just your imagination. Your physical environment mirrors your mental state and vice versa. Small habits stack up. Something as simple as drinking a glass of water with full attention, breathing deeply for a few minutes before checking your phone, or setting a mindful morning routine It's like tuning an instrument before a performance. You're calibrating yourself to respond, not just react. Over time, those tiny shifts add up to a different life experience. And here's something powerful to consider. This isn't just about you. The energy you bring into a room impacts everyone in it. You've felt this. One calm person can steady a chaotic meeting. One centered parent can shift the emotional tone of a household. You don't have to preach or convince anyone to live differently. Just being in alignment with your own internal clarity naturally influences your surroundings. You become a tuning fork for balance. So when you apply as above, so below to your personal life, it becomes more than philosophy. It becomes a practice. You start to realize that your thoughts are not just in your head. They're part of a larger feedback loop. Your body listens. Other people pick up on them. Circumstances begin to bend in response. You might not be able to control every outcome, but you can shift your orientation. And that shift matters, sometimes more than you think. Of course, this isn't about achieving some enlightened, flawless version of yourself. It's about being 1 degree more aware than yesterday, 1 breath slower to react, 1 thought more intentional. It's about living as if your inner world does broadcast itself into reality. Because in ways both subtle and profound, it already does. What if the universe is less like a machine and more like a mirror? What if life isn't something happening to you, but something happening through you? Not as a punishment or test, but as a real-time reflection of your inner state. If that's true, and more science, psychology, and ancient wisdom suggests it is, then every moment becomes an opportunity, not to perfect yourself, but to realign, to retune your own instrument, to bring yourself into harmony with the larger pattern of life. So try this. The next time something frustrating happens, don't just push it away. Ask, what's this showing me about what I'm projecting? The answer might not come right away, and that's okay. Awareness builds with practice. The point isn't to never feel stuck again. It's to know that stuckness is a signal, not a sentence. And with that awareness, you can shift, slowly, gently, steadily. The journey of applying as above, so below in daily life isn't about cosmic rituals or lofty goals. It's about everyday choices, a bit more presence, a bit more reflection, a bit more courage to live like your inner world matters, because it does. Not in theory, in practice, right here, right now. In the next 2 sections, I'll talk about how transforming yourself can influence the world around you, and how you can find balance between the spiritual and the material, using as above, so below. If that's not your thing, feel free to skip ahead to the detailed practical guide section. If your inner world really does ripple outward and shape your reality, as we explored earlier, then it's not a stretch to say, change within one person can eventually shift the world around them. That's not just spiritual talk. It's a principle that shows up in psychology, sociology, and even systems theory. What's true on the personal level doesn't stop there. It echoes out into families, communities, and entire cultures. Every large-scale transformation begins with the individual. You could call it the micro-to-macro principle. A mindset shift, a healed wound, a more conscious choice. It might seem small, even invisible from the outside, but those changes alter how we move through the world. And how we move affects how others move around us. Think of any major social figure who left a lasting impact. Not just politically, but energetically. Gandhi, Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr. Before they ever gave a speech or led a movement, they each went through profound inner transformation. They weren't just reacting to the world's chaos. They were rooted in a kind of inner alignment that allowed them to hold clarity, compassion, and purpose in the face of immense resistance. That's why their presence shifted rooms, not just policies. Their influence wasn't only about strategy. It was about resonance. This isn't just historical hero worship. It happens on smaller, quieter scales too, every day. Take the example of a school teacher. Imagine someone who has quietly done the work of healing their own inner wounds, perhaps from childhood trauma, burnout, or self-doubt. That teacher doesn't just return to class with new techniques. They show up differently. Their presence is more grounded, more compassionate, more attuned. They're able to truly see their students, not just manage them. A child who feels seen, who senses safety in the room, learns differently. Over time, those children carry the imprint of that experience into their lives. The effect spreads, not through preaching, but through energy and example. That's how the collective field works. It's not just a metaphor, it's measurable. In physics and biology, we know that systems synchronize. Metronomes on a table begin to tick in unison. Heart cells pulse in shared rhythm. Human beings, too, co-regulate emotionally and energetically. When one person in a room is calm, others tend to mirror that calm. The same goes for anxiety, anger, or fear. Emotions are contagious, and so is presence. This is why inner work is not selfish. When you become more aware, more regulated, more intentional, you don't just benefit yourself, you shift the emotional climate of every room you enter. That effect multiplies over time. One person becomes an anchor for stability in a family. One team member raises the emotional intelligence of a workplace. One community leader models a new kind of listening, and the tone of public discourse begins to shift. And the inverse is true too. Unhealed pain spreads. Patterns of fear, control, and scarcity replicate themselves. Across families, organizations, and nations. You don't need a degree in sociology to see that. But the powerful part is, any break in the chain, any person who says, "This stops with me," can interrupt that cycle. Healing isn't just personal, it's structural. This is why practices like mindfulness, shadow work, or journaling aren't just wellness trends. They're tools for cultural change. A society made up of individuals who understand themselves deeply, who take responsibility for their emotional patterns, who can regulate conflict without escalating it. That's not utopia. That's what evolution looks like. So when we say, as above, so below, and apply it to the social level, it becomes, as within one, so among many. Your choices matter. Your healing matters. Your clarity becomes a blueprint others can resonate with. No movement, no institution, no revolution can replace the quiet power of people who are deeply aligned with what they stand for, because their actions don't just instruct, they influence. It's easy to feel small in the face of global chaos, but the truth is, every collective shift begins somewhere, usually with someone who made a different choice in an ordinary moment. A parent who responds instead of yelling, a leader who listens instead of defending, a stranger who chooses kindness over apathy. These are not minor acts. They're energetic investments in the kind of world we want to live in. And the beauty of it? You don't have to change the whole system, just your frequency in it. Because when one piece of a network shifts, the pattern adjusts, the field recalibrates, and that's how real transformation begins. Quietly, deeply, and from within. By now, you might be wondering, how do I actually live all of this? If as above, so below really plays out in the world, and if personal alignment can ripple into the collective, then where does that leave us in the middle of our messy, modern lives? Balancing emails, deadlines, bills, relationships, and maybe the occasional existential spiral? This is where Hermeticism shows its real depth. Contrary to what some might assume, Hermetic philosophy doesn't suggest escaping from the material world, or abandoning daily responsibilities for a mountaintop. In fact, it argues the opposite. True mastery lies in integration. Spirituality and material life aren't opposites. They're different expressions of the same energy, and the art of living well is learning how to bring them into balance. The ancient Hermetic view holds that spirit and matter are two sides of the same coin. Just as physics today teaches that light behaves both as a wave and a particle, depending on how you observe it. What we call spiritual isn't floating somewhere else, separate from the world we touch and build and struggle in. It's embedded within it. Spirit moves through your body, your relationships, your money, your work, your creativity. The challenge is learning to recognize it and move with it rather than dividing your life into sacred and secular. Even Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, speaks to the same truth. Energy and matter are interchangeable. That's not just science. It's a mirror of Hermetic understanding. What we see, what we touch, what we build in the world is not separate from the energy that animates it. That means your career, your parenting, your food choices, your boundaries, your bank account, they're all spiritual arenas. The sacred isn't elsewhere, it's here. But there's a catch. Go too far into either extreme, and the imbalance creates new problems. When someone becomes overly absorbed in spiritual ideas, without grounding them in action, it can lead to what psychologists call spiritual bypassing, using high-minded concepts to avoid dealing with real-world issues. It shows up as ignoring difficult emotions in the name of positivity, avoiding accountability because everything happens for a reason, or detaching from others under the illusion of being above the drama. On the flip side, if you swing too far toward materialism, focusing only on results, status, success, or survival, can drain meaning from life. You get the house, the job, the recognition, but something still feels hollow. That's existential crisis territory. That's when people start asking, is this all there is? Even after they've checked every box. Balance is the antidote. Living hermetically means showing up for the physical world with spiritual awareness. It's knowing that paying your bills, preparing a meal, or building a business can be spiritual acts if done with presence, purpose, and clarity. It's recognizing that meditation and mindset are important, but so is standing up for yourself in a meeting, or setting boundaries in a relationship, or making choices that support your long-term well-being. This isn't about achieving some perfect harmony every day. Some days will be more grounded, others more reflective. But the goal is movement between the two, like breath, inhale and exhale, action and insight. The moment you start viewing your life as a place where energy becomes form, where inner alignment shapes external reality, everything becomes more intentional. You're no longer dividing your life into the real and the spiritual. You're weaving them together. So if you've been tempted to escape into the clouds, remember, Hermeticism calls you back to earth. And if you've been stuck in the grind of daily life with no sense of meaning, it invites you to remember the deeper current moving beneath it all. Real transformation lives in that middle space, not in avoiding the world, and not in being consumed by it, but in choosing to live with both feet planted and both eyes open. You've taken in a lot so far. Concepts about consciousness, vibration, inner work, collective impact. It's deep stuff. But this next part is where things get real. Ideas are powerful, but without practice, they fade into the background noise of daily life. So if you're still with me, this is the moment we shift from understanding to embodying. Let's talk about turning the Hermetic principle as above, so below into something you live, not just something you think about. Let's start simple. 1. Meditation with breath or natural sound. One of the quickest ways to align yourself with the flow of life is through stillness. Meditation is not about emptying the mind or becoming superhuman. It's about creating enough space inside yourself to notice what's already happening. Try this.
Sit somewhere comfortable.
Close your eyes. Bring your attention to your breath. No need to change it, just observe. If you're near nature, use the sound of wind, birds, or water as your anchor instead. The goal isn't to achieve something, but to return again and again to the moment you're in. Start with 5 minutes. That's it. What matters is consistency. Over time, this practice strengthens your ability to respond instead of react, to choose your next step instead of being pulled by old patterns. That's real power. 2. Inner observation during daily triggers. One of the most accessible spiritual practices. Daily life, the traffic jam, the passive-aggressive email, the kid's meltdown, the unexpected bill. Each time something irritates you, take a mental step back. Don't try to fix the emotion, just observe it. Where do you feel it in your body? What belief shows up underneath? Is this reaction yours or something inherited? This kind of self-awareness is like turning on a light in a room you've walked through in the dark your whole life. And once you see clearly, you get to choose differently. Example, someone interrupts you mid-sentence and irritation flares. Pause. Is this just about the interruption or an old wound around feeling unheard? That insight alone is transformative. You've broken the pattern just by noticing it. 3. Morning gratitude as emotional tuning. Before you touch your phone in the morning, before you rush into your to-do list, stop. Name 3 specific things you're grateful for. They don't have to be big, just honest. Maybe it's your cup of tea, a well-slept night, a soft breeze through the window. The brain is wired to notice problems. It's a survival feature, but gratitude rewires that bias. It trains your attention to scan for what's working, not just what's missing. Over time, this daily reset builds resilience, improves relationships, and shifts your default frequency toward openness and abundance. 4. Set clear intentions before action. We move through most of life on autopilot, emails, errands, conversations. But when you add intention, even routine tasks become energized. Before you start anything, writing a message, entering a meeting, cooking dinner, ask, what energy do I want to bring into this? Setting an intention doesn't control the outcome, but it shapes your experience. Try saying it out loud or writing it down. I want to bring calm into this call. I want to listen fully. I want to enjoy this moment instead of rushing through it. Over time, this practice builds a powerful feedback loop between your inner clarity and the results you see in the world. 5. Simplify your physical environment. Your space mirrors your mind. A cluttered home, overstuffed calendar, or chaotic digital life doesn't just stress you out, it confuses your energetic signal. Simplifying your environment is one of the fastest ways to feel clearer internally. You don't need to do a full minimalist overhaul. Just pick one drawer, one corner, one folder on your computer. Ask yourself, does this support who I'm becoming? If not, thank it and let it go. When your outer world supports your inner clarity, the alignment becomes natural. You feel more focused, more grounded, and more available to life. If you still have doubts and find yourself asking, how long does it take? What can I really expect from applying this principle in my life? Here's the honest answer. Reflection isn't immediate, but it's inevitable. Hermeticism teaches that the universe works through correspondence, rhythm, and cause and effect. Like a seed planted in the soil, your internal shifts take time to grow roots before they visibly bear fruit in your outer world. That's why faith, discipline, and consistency are crucial. Without them, people often give up too soon, right before things start to change. The timeline? It varies. Some people begin to notice subtle changes within days or weeks. More clarity, a sense of emotional balance, or fewer reactive behaviors. External changes, such as shifts in relationships, opportunities, or life direction, often follow in a few months or more. But here's the catch. The deeper the alignment, the more lasting the transformation. And these aren't just ideas floating in a mystical cloud. People in high-pressure, result-driven fields like therapy, education, and leadership report measurable change when they embody these principles. Their interactions become smoother, team morale improves, client breakthroughs happen more naturally, and decision-making becomes clearer. Why? Because they're not forcing change. They're aligning with it. The energy they bring into the room affects the outcomes they create. A real-world example, Ray Dalio, one of the most well-known advocates of Hermetic principles, without always using that specific label, is Ray Dalio, the billionaire founder of Bridgewater Associates, one of the largest hedge funds in the world. Dalio openly credits inner reflection, pattern recognition, and a deep commitment to alignment between inner clarity and external action as the foundation of his success. In his best-selling book Principles, he talks at length about the importance of understanding one's internal world to navigate external reality wisely. He writes, The quality of your life will depend on the quality of the decisions you make. And the quality of your decisions will depend on the quality of your thinking. That's pure Hermeticism in action. As within, so without. Dalio also built daily meditation into his routine decades ago, long before it was fashionable on Wall Street, and attributes much of his emotional stability and long-term vision to it. This kind of inward mastery gave him the calm to weather financial storms, led teams with unusual transparency, and maintained clarity under massive pressure. In fact, Bridgewater's entire culture is built around radical honesty and awareness, a collective version of internal reflection turned into business infrastructure. So no, Hermeticism isn't just for mystics and monks. It's used, sometimes unknowingly, by leaders who've realized that mastering your inner world gives you a critical edge in the outer one. As above, so below isn't something to simply understand, it's something to live. You've just walked through the essence of a timeless principle, one that speaks not just to the stars and atoms, but to your everyday choices, your inner state, your relationships, your impact. This isn't about lofty theory or spiritual jargon. It's about experience, real life, the kind that's messy, beautiful, frustrating, and sacred all at once. The true journey lies in applying this wisdom, not perfectly but intentionally, when you begin to create harmony within. Through your thoughts, emotions, values, and habits, you're not just improving your own life, you're contributing to a collective shift. Because your energy affects your family, your work, your community, and ultimately the world. Whether you're aware of it or not, you're always broadcasting something. Why not make it something aligned? And let's be honest, the world doesn't need more theories. It needs more people who embody what they know, people who live their values, who bring presence into the mundane, who lead with clarity, kindness, and grounded strength. That's what Hermeticism was always about. Not escaping the world, but transforming it by transforming ourselves. So here's the invitation. Start with you, not because you're broken, but because you're a part of something vast and intelligent. A field that responds to your frequency. A universe that reflects your state. You're not separate from it. You are it, in motion, in expression, in evolution. If this journey speaks to something in you, don't just let it pass. Practice. Reflect, apply, and if you found value in this exploration, help keep the momentum going. Like, subscribe, and share this with someone who's ready to live deeper, not just think differently. Because when one of us realigns, the whole field shifts. Let that shift start with you.